Hello ladies and gentlemen, Azagai here. I bring to you another video for Conqueror's Blade, published by Purse Interactive and My Games, developed by Booming Tech. Now, this is going to be a PTR update, though since this is a very short PTR, I think these will essentially come out verbatim on the Thursday. I don't think, I don't think, I don't think it's going to be I don't think there's going to be any changes unless there's an egregious difference in performance. But I've already tested these guys out, and to be honest, um, they kind of hit the nail on the head in kind of just like solving a couple of the issues, but without it going completely out of control. That is to say, as you can see, Madao's Fortebraccio and the Onimusha have gotten some buffs. So let's read them first before I tell you my thoughts. Um, so this is a PTR update. These aren't patch notes that are guaranteed, so they could change. But Madao Battalion, Madao Defense reduced damage from cavalry by 45%. Now will reduce damage from cavalry by 65%, increase of 20%. Without defense during the formation, the Warlord grants 20% cavalry damage reduction. Now, this is kind of similar to the ISG change where they receive 28 or 26% against units. Now, this is Madao's against cavalry only. Is this a good thing? I don't know. Honestly, I don't like it, but those of you using Medalls, you're less likely to just get absolutely owned while these Medalls are in Braze, and you're just kind of like standing on top of your Medall. So this is a good change for, again, buffing the Medalls to make them more anti-cav and protecting the hero from getting one-shot. Again, is just another thing where it's just logistically, it's really good. It just makes it more difficult for, how to say, heroes to kind of get sniped out by cavalry and leaving their pikes to be sitting ducks, or um, just again just getting punched through your modal because of the high hit limit. So even if you're standing inside your modal, which is an anti-cavalry unit, the cavalry just rolls straight on through and just slices you in half. I mean, I've experienced this. I've used modals. I'm standing inside my unit. The new Zhuangxia heavy cavalry just rolls in through, slaughters half my modals, and kills me, and the other half of my modal barely survives. Now, changes the full ratio. Base piercing damage increase from 1092 to 1492. That's a big increase. Slightly under 40%. It's like 38 point something. Um, is this a good change? Yes. What ratios have been weak for way too long. The general damage output from Fortebraccios is super low and completely inconsistent. Now, the reason why this is really good is because Fortebraccio is now dealing enough damage to actually kill cavalry. And I didn't even mention this since I was just reading out the things. And I probably should read out the thing before I start talking about them, but um, I missed the Medal Battalion's buff where Medal Defense increased the number of attack targets by 1. Now, this is completely different from the last time they increased the attack targets and reduced the scaling from 0.25 to 0.1, but this is like 100% increase in damage, basically. Instead of like logistically, it was just some kind of thing. But that was completely different because that was a brace thing. That was a brace tick thing. But anyway, let's just quickly onto the Onimusha. Leadership dropped from 235 to 225. This puts them at the same level of Men-at-Arms, which I think are also 225. I could be wrong. It might be 215, but regardless, 10, 10, 10 leadership off on a relatively class cannonish unit. These unit can still go crazy because it is designed like a glass cannon, but it heals. It has enough health where it would there are quite a few units that won't one shot it, and it heals enough of its damage where it's just like if you don't one shot it, you're going to die by attrition. Um, it's mostly just utility things for the next part. So charge cooldown goes from 55 to 35 seconds. After each active skill ends, maintain a high speed movement state for 5 seconds. The speed boost in itself is very small, 15-20%, nothing large. They're not going to be running at light speed. They're not going to be running as fast as Cav. Again, this is not very fast boost, but then again, infantry are just not treated the same. Um, well, when I say not treated the same, cavalry right now has been getting like their speed boosts are like 50%. Infantry speed boosts are like 20% or 25% max. If they were like 50%, it would be bonkers insane. I mean, like Fenris only 25%. They're fast, but not fast enough apparently. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is 50% for Fenris, that is. So this is going to be very short, but if you want to see some testing that I did do, I had Alan Alpogi, Alop, Alop, I say Alpolgi? Oh man, Alan Apolgi to help out for this one. So I'm just gonna call him Alan. I don't normally use the second word for thing, but Alan. We did a couple of tests together. The Medal Battalion, 100% are going to be becoming better because of how strong cavalry is. Um, the changes to the reduced damage actually did nothing. The biggest change here is the increased number of attack targets by one. And I kind of like half explained this, but let me explain this more. The brace, so when I say brace, Medal Defense, how their attack works is that it has two different attacks, or to say attack damage instances. They have the what we refer to as the stab and brace tick. The brace tick only happens at the end of an attack, which is kind of weird because it's like it's either at the end of an attack animation or at before an attack animation. And how it works is that after an attack stab, it will do a brace tick. But I could be wrong, and it actually is a tick then stab. So I mean, like logistically speaking, like if I was to design the game, I would do the tick then stab, and then when they brace again, they'll tick again and stab again. So I think I'm leaning towards the brace tick then stab. But let me just tell you that they're different, but there is a limit on the brace tick, and it's not constant, and it is restricted by the attack speed of the unit. So it's not like tick 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 like normal pike units, which will essentially tick every quarter of a second or every half second. And this has its own limit on attack targets and its own scaling, which was last changed, was the last time they touched Medals, where it was 1 and it had a scaling of 0.25. So for every point of like piercing damage, it went from so every point of piercing damage, um, it only did like 0.25 of it. So it only had like a scaling of 25%. But that changed so that they had an attack limit of 3, but only did 10%. So you kind of get this scenario where it's like, very low damage, but hits 3 targets. I think the changes for this one was to allow the medals to stun multiple cavalry, but it didn't work out because for some reason the brace tick didn't stun cavalry, and I don't even think it applies slow. So just wiping my hands off of that. Just I don't think it worked like they intended, and obviously it didn't change anything about the medal. The difference in damage was like a six, like basically like a 6%, like a six, 1/6, um, 1/6 difference, which is like 60, which is like a 16% on a very minor thing. I mean, 16% is actually huge, but it's just like 16% of 100 is like 16. But when you're dealing with thousands, it's basically nothing. The important thing is that the increase in attack target doubles their damage, and this will mean that they're really good against infantry, but especially against cavalry. Now, one of the biggest weakness about the Madao Battalion is that they never did enough damage to just one-shot cavalry, and that's mostly because cavalry just had a lot of protections. They added a lot of protections, making it more and more difficult for units to kill cavalry, especially when they're in the most powerful state, either charging or using an ability. Adding a +1 doubles their damage just straight up. If medals do like 5,000 damage, they're now doing 10,000 damage with a single hit. And I'm adding the bonus damage in this case. When traveling at high speed, you run into a medal, you get hit by like a 5,000 bonkers hit. I know that they've changed this number. Weirdly, I feel like they've changed this number, like because sometimes I've been hit with a random ass like 12k, like a 12k hit. Like where the hell did this come from? But regularly, I think it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be 5 times the amount, so it would be like 5 to 7k. Like traveling as fast as probably it scales higher, but like 5 to 7k is what I regularly see kind of being the output of the medals, which is funnily enough kind of what ends up being similar to um, the phalanx formation, which also outputs like 5 6k, even though phalanx formation's base damage is only like is way higher. So it's just like Phalanx only gets like twice the amount, well, or maybe because like Phalanx in itself deals twice the amount, and then it's still 5 times whatever the unit is, so it'd just be like, yeah. Anyway, that's besides the point. Um, Medals will now kill cavalry verbatim. Like being able to kill cavalry outright makes Medals so much safer to stand behind because it's much, much, much harder to punch through the medals, even if you do not kill the medals. I am in the testing we did, you are not surviving with half your unit anymore. You are surviving with nothing. You run anything through these medals, you will it would be by miracle that you get maybe one or two through the medal. I mean, like if you don't bypass medals and you go through the medal, it would be a miracle if even like two of your cavalry survive, even one of your cavalry survive. There have been it is very likely that the medals will be able to just straight up murder the whole unit, and they take less damage because they kill them faster, and it will be so much better because it means the medals are now have a higher efficiency against cavalry. But this also puts them this also gives them a higher efficiency against other units as well, not just cavalry. Infantry, they're dealing twice as much damage against infantry. The changes here is also very minor, against infantry because there's other reasons why infantry just beats up the Vidals. But units like the Zweihander, Iron Reapers, those units that don't have block will nominally be more impacted than units that do block. Men-at-Arms, for one, will still trash your medals, but it will be more difficult for the men-at-arms to come out unscathed. It's more than likely that you will be able to probably melt a men-at-arms that's not careful. But in a 1v1, you you won't win. Like the weakness against block is still there. It's just like um, once you break down that block, you will win because you now deal a sufficient amount of damage. And I say sufficient, um, you're still doing about half as much versus something like Halberdier Phalanx. But this is better than what it was before because +1 in this case to their medal defense is literally 100% increase in damage. Now, the sad thing here is it's all in Medal defense. They haven't changed Medal order. They haven't changed Carnage, which again, Carnage is a very powerful skill. It has no protections, by the way, none of the protections from Medal defense. Similarly, Medal order has none of the protections. It has slightly better damage, I think, unless the changes to Medal defense may pushed it above thing. But Medal Order is almost completely obsolete. Besides a slight speed boost, Medal Order um only only good thing coming going for it is the unblockable push attack. And I say push attack because the stab itself is not unblockable anymore, but the push is unblockable. So there's that. Um, Similar to the Medal defense, the Fortebraccios, that increase in damage actually pushes them to be able to deal with cavalry now. Fortebraccios are no longer just getting ran through by winged hussars and the Zwangia heavy cavalry. Still, it has the turning weakness is still there. I'm not sure if they will ever get rid of it, but I want them to get rid of it. They kind of addressed the issue, but they kind of didn't either. Port ratios will still be a mess to use, but if you want to use them, you can get very good value out of them. The damage increase probably puts them on the map. Granted that you don't get shot up or caught out of position. Water Ratios is still kind of that hit or miss unit where it's just very niche. It should be doing way better in the role that it should be doing, being anti-cav, or just being way stronger than it should be in its current state. And this is a good direction. Like, the only thing that I would say that to push Fortebraccios further is to make it slightly tankier. But that's only I'm only saying that so that they don't just get rinsed out by um, ranged because infantry has high hit limits. If you dense up the Forterachos, you'll lose the whole Forterachos in almost an instant. And I mean, I've seen this happen. Lancelot's walk straight into a Forteracho, stabbed, shield bash, whole thing's dead. Like in a blink of an eye. And finally, again, Onimusha, not great. It's a little bit of utility. I mean, the charge cooldown is 20 off, which is massive, but like you're not going to use the charge very often because you're just going to be using Sakura Onslaught. It's going to be on a much lower cooldown. I mean, if you use the mix line, it's on a 4-second cooldown. It's up perpetually. So this high movement speed states allows them to be more aggressive, but it also, I mean, I say more aggressive. It activates at the skill end, which is a bit different from others. It's not as fast as some of the other speed boosts by the looks of it, but that's probably because they're not like maxing out in acceleration. Um, Still, this in its entirety is more of a utility change for the Onimusha to make them more hit and run, to make them more of a flanker, to they want you to definitely use the Onimusha to to push around instead of upfront win. And the balance of this game just pushes people to win, win, win just from the get-go. Punch through, beat up everyone from the front. That's how everyone feels. Like, oh, shields are too strong. We can't beat through these guys. Just literally surround them, and you would win. Um, but yeah, I've probably talked about too long for this balance patch. It's very short. But if you are interested in any of the testing that I did with Alan, I will leave a link in the description. But that is all for this PTR update. I will try to keep you updated with any news that I get or see. Well, I say I get. This is basically if you're on the PTR server, you get this news. If you're around the Booming Tech thing, you get news. I'm Booming Tech Discord, you get news. So at this point in time, I hope you guys enjoyed the I hope you guys enjoyed the video. But other than that, my name's Jessica, and have a nice day. Bye for now.